I am sure that you remember the concept of aberration from the last chapter. Here we have point A, point B, and a deviation from a straight line. For a group activity, this idea of aberration can be termed with a specific word. And in this technology of management, this is given a very clear and a very important definition. Let's see what this word DevT means. Develop traffic is a statement you will begin to see now. It is condemnatory. The symbol DevT means on a dispatch, this dispatch exists only because its originator has not handled a situation, problem, or an executive order. Develop traffic does not mean usual and necessary traffic. It means unusual and unnecessary traffic. L. Ron Hubbard. Extra, unusual motions. You know, it's sort of like, well, work done that no one really needed in the final analysis. And you've probably come across this phenomenon and have either done such extra work or seen it being done by another. You know, this phenomenon, DevT, you could compare it to, well, a virus maybe, that trickles into our groups and destroys them from the inside. Can you imagine a large tree standing here and bark beetles creep inside, invisibly somehow, and they gnaw and eat away at this tree? And it's still standing, by the looks of it, but on the inside, it's already rotten and decayed. And if we do nothing about these bark eaters, figuratively speaking, about this phenomenon called DevT, then our tree will fall sooner or later, but inevitably. Actually, you're already familiar with this thick and big book called Basic Staff Hat, and this big and clever book says a lot about this phenomenon of DevT. There are many publications, and that's no accident. But just for reference, the list of DevT given here, is made up of 51 variations. Of course, we're not going to study them here in detail or in full, you know, but it's necessary to comment on this and show how important and how crucial this topic is in business, most of all. Let's run across a few types of DevT and comment on them a bit, because it's truly important to figure this out and be able to observe what's what, where the roots grow, and what to do about it. It's really very important. Alright, let's take, for example, a type of DevT called false reports. And very often a person can be reporting on something incorrectly and not out of malice, not because he's got some evil intentions, you know, destructive ones, but just because he doesn't have the right information. But he's reporting based on something false, and now this false report creates a certain amount of new, unnecessary extra work. There is a type of DevT, or better said, a kind of DevT, such as not putting orders in writing, as you've already well observed in the previous example we illustrated for you. Also, there is a type of DevT called added inapplicable data. Just imagine that you come into your junior's office or just a colleague's office and you ask him, you say, "Ivan, did you get the money from such and such client?" And Ivan tells you, "Let me answer your question in just a second, you know. I did call him, but yesterday he was watching soccer when I called. By the way, did you watch soccer yesterday? You know, oh, by the way, Do you know what the final score was? So you go way off on a tangent and then you leave and come back to your workplace and ask yourself, so where did I go and why? And so on. So, all of these actions undertaken by you, that was DevT. You know, one could also say this much about this variation of DevT. You know, girls often get together somewhere in the smoking area or elsewhere during work hours and start discussing something. They say, "Oh my God, yesterday I bought such a cute top. It was so cute." And this cute top takes up half an hour of work time. A lot of DevT could come about just based on this one datum. Added in applicable data. And what do you think about this type of DevT called a hobby horse? A person gets a certain amount of communication in his in-system, in the three-basket system, and he stands there, looks them over and says, "All right, I don't like this one or that one. Aha, this one I like." That's where he's an expert. That's what he likes doing, and he starts doing it and puts everything else in the pending basket and pretty much forgets about it. What if he has several posts and jobs on the org board, and all of these posts are really important, but he only does something that he likes? So then the rest will be left unfinished, and again, this brings about a huge quantity of DevT. A hobby horse. There is another kind of DevT where people come to the executive. Staff members come to him for a reason or for no reason at all, just like in that slow flow system. And they ask him all the time, "Is this okay? Is that okay? And what about this? Is that okay?" And when the executive starts taking that into consideration and involves himself in solving that cycle or this one, a cycle that has nothing to do with his hat, then again we have a vast quantity of this DevT. We could continue on with this list. What about a type of DevT like not carrying out one's post duties? Do you remember? Things like solitaire, social networking, and whatever else. That is, we expect the person to do something during his allocated work time, and he simply doesn't do his duties, and that's that. Once again, that's a basis for a lot of DevT. There is a type of DevT called unproductive staff. It's just by reason of that person not being able to produce anything in general. But he's there on post and he's labelled as such, but he doesn't do anything. And there is an avalanche in his basket at the communication centre. And so on. We could continue with this list and comment on it, illustrate it, and talk about it for a long, long time. The main conclusion here is that maybe I'm repeating myself, but it's because this is a terribly important subject. If you don't pay enough attention to this phenomenon called DevT in your life, in your business, in your work, and if you're a staff member, and especially if you're an executive, then a lot of trouble is knocking on your door. Because a vast quantity of DevT is, like I said already, a virus. It's an avalanche. And if we don't take care of it, and if we don't watch it, and if no one in the company is fighting this, then don't be surprised if in just a short while you'll be living in the spin bin.